I'll let him know. I'll send him a text with his phone. Is any day better for you than another? I'll send you.
Okay, everybody.
Not a bad way to spend your hours.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, all right. I'll be in touch.
Morning, Cole. Morning, Maria. How are everybody this morning? Now, I think we're almost ready to start, so once you've got a coffee, sit down. So we'll just start, the way that we start now every Sunday. We'll start firstly with an acknowledgement of country and then with our affirmations. So let me just begin by our acknowledgement of country. As we start today, I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal owners of the land on which we're meeting today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I pay our respects, my respects to their elders past and to present. Today we do church on land that was stolen and never ceded. And then a statement of affirmation. Hartwell is a fully affirming community, and we're fully committed to being a safe place for all people who are connected to this community, regardless of their gender, their sexuality, their race, their family background, their economic situation, regardless of how old they are, where they come from, what abilities they have, what languages they speak, and what religion or spiritual path or tradition and ethical conviction they have. Everyone is welcome here, and we want everyone to feel safe here. So now I'm going to welcome some people more broadly. Before I get to our special guests, I'll do them last. There's a range of welcomes that I think are there today. Colin, Maria, back from international sojourns. Lovely to see you guys here today. Barb, are you back from an international sojourn as well?
3 weeks in Sussex. Not big.
3 weeks in Sussex, that's pretty big. So welcome back. And Enid, sick. Oh, never away, but not as exciting. So good to see you back here today. We've got John with a new smile, of course, today. So it's always good to see that.
You want to see them, Dan?
No. Bit of a comparison session, I reckon, about and then, of course, today we've got some people who are away. We've got Tim and Julia up in Mission Beach, is that right? With me, or with the whole family. So they're all up there. Carolyn and David. Carolyn and David have been married 40 years tomorrow. So they're on a special.
It's today.
Sorry, 40 years today.
Wow.
So they're on a 40th anniversary weekend. And so hence we're all the more lucky that Thomas is going to be joining us this morning. And of course Judith's away in So
Don't forget Brian.
of course, yeah, Brian.
Brian who?
Brian's 2 weeks to go, is that right? This week?
1 week.
1 week, okay. So Brian's almost finished his enormous pilgrimage. So welcome here, everyone. And of course, a special welcome to 4 people who are here with us this morning. Julia, Ash, Jess, and can we bring Tom up? There you go. And I, yeah. This is the AI version of Thomas. So, he's got all the right answers to questions. Now, we've been working very hard to make all the audio work. Thomas, can you just say hello to us and fill us with confidence?
Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear us. I'll intermittently put myself on mute so you don't hear the sounds of Vegemite toast being eaten. We're up in Halls Gap on our way to Adelaide to see some friends, so much to be able to do.
So, guys, thank you so much for making the time to come this morning. When I invited you along today, I apologise, I hadn't realised today was the first day of daylight savings. So 10 o'clock was slightly more rude than it normally would otherwise be. So thank you so much for making time to get up this morning and to join us here today. And today we're going to jump into our session today. Today's a pretty relaxed session, and as much as anything else, it's time for us to listen, right? We've just read an inclusiveness statement up there where we've said there's a whole lot of people who we want to make feel safe and welcome here, and that includes people who have different perspectives and are on different pathways and different journeys. And today, I guess what we want to say as much as anything else, we'd like you to be honest with us, even if that might be troubling for us. And we want to, yeah, well, not particularly me, Jess, you understand that. So we want to, hopefully it's a bit of a space where you guys can feel free to share your thoughts on that. And look, just if we decide, when you have a sort of a feeling in front, you want to jump up on stage and break out and badly lying in a manger. That's an in joke.
Maybe explain to some of the people who don't know how these three, who they belong to. No, you don't want it?
So there's just a little bit of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'll explain that later. But, so all of these people have parents who have been in the congregation, the Marousas, the Johnsons, the Wilsons and the Goodwins, obviously. And so these people have all been here many Sundays, long time ago. And every year at Christmas, Kathy Bradley used to do a children's performance, and the lead song in that was Baby Lying in a Manger. And so all of them on that stage, dressed up in that regard. So if any of you feel just a harking back, just we'll wander up, we'll know what's happening. So as I said, so today's really time for us to have a chat with you, hear where your lives are, and hear how you're progressing and learn from. Does that make sense to everyone? What we're going to do is we'll have a bit of a chat now and go through some things. We'll then open it up for some questions from the group, so people can ask questions. There's one thing we've got to remember, and that is that we've got not only people in the room here this morning, but people online aside from Thomas. those people can only hear what's said into this microphone. So that means if you wanted to have a crack at Tom, do it while I'm holding the microphone. You won't get it. But no, so online can only hear what's going on in here. So please, when you start speaking, what we'll do is we'll just pass this mic around to people, okay? So, without further ado, how does it feel to be here this morning, guys? Tom, when you want to speak, put your hand up and we'll make sure we turn you off mute, okay? How does it feel to be here this morning? Any of you want to lead it off?
Yeah, it feels okay. I think it doesn't worry me to come here today or be part of this. It's not something I drive in and think, oh, why am I back here? It's sort of come back and you remember things, but it's also I don't drive in and think, oh, this would be a great place to come. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same sort of thing, like it brings back a lot of memories, like a lot of our childhood was obviously spent here and a lot of our really close friends that we still see were part of the congregation. So in essence, it's like coming back to like a family that you haven't really seen in a while, I guess, without also a lot of them being here today. You still have all the memories and everything.
Yeah, as they've said, it feels fine, I guess. A bit harder because I'm tired. But no, it feels positive on the most part, yeah.
And Tom, any thoughts? You're not actually here, but how does it feel to be
Well,
online?
I'm doing Paul's Gap this morning. I think I shared, all those sentiments. I have very positive memories of Surrey, and almost feel very fondly whenever I rejoin you. Thanks, Isla. And it's lovely to join here and see lots of friendly faces. And I think, as Ash said, the Surrey community to me feels like an extension of family, and whether that's physically at church or at other areas when we all catch up, it's always a very positive experience for me.
Okay, so welcome here. And sorry, I didn't properly introduce, so it's Julia, Ash, Jess, and Tom up on the screen. Okay. So and Grace and Isla. So guys, welcome. So tell me, so this time normally on a Sunday morning, what would you normally be doing?
So for anyone that doesn't know, I work in a school, so I have a Monday to Friday job, so the weekend is really about resting for me and sort of catching up with people, socialising and sort of refilling that cup, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And something that's really important to me is I have a Labrador called Ollie, which some of you will have met, and he's so important in my life, and so something I really treasure on a Saturday and Sunday morning is my time having a lazy morning and sort of a slow morning, but walking Ollie and sort of being outside with him. There's a bit of a community at the dog park. I don't know people well, but you sort of go and you interact and you're outside, and that's how I really love starting my days on Saturday and Sunday. So even I really wanted to bring Ollie this morning because it's usually our time together, but Mum told me I wasn't allowed to. I do agree that it may have been a bit much with the two dogs.
For me, my partner usually works on a Sunday morning, so for me it's my time with my son Isaac, even though every day, but over the weekend especially, is in the morning, we have our same routine, but we know that Dad's coming home early, so we always make sure that we've got something ready so that when Nick comes home, I can just pass him to my partner and now it's his time. But I know that Isaac looks forward to Nick coming back. So that's usually what we're doing now on a Sunday. It's a bit different to 6 months ago, but it's definitely something that's rewarding in its own way.
Yeah, Sunday is the day that I get to spend with my partner as well. Like we both work during the week. He has sport on Saturdays, so Sunday is the day that we have together, and usually Sunday morning we'll be making breakfast or something like that. Do a bit of baking as well, just relax during the day. Sunday is usually the day that I try not to do too much, so I can reset before Monday, and usually sleep in if I can.
Tom?
Yeah, similar for me. So we also obviously have a little 1-year-old girl. So Sunday mornings are often just family time, the three of us together. Last couple of weeks, I think Kaz and Dave have actually very kindly offered to take Isla to Surrey to give Grace and I some time to spend with just the two of us, which we don't get to do particularly often these days. And occasionally I work on Sundays, but most of the time it's family time, so we're just usually having a quiet one at home. And Grace's sister sometimes pops around as well for breakfast and coffee.
So normally Sunday morning, pretty chilled time, charge the batteries, get ready for the week, okay? So if we think to the week ahead, so let's say we move forward to tomorrow. So tomorrow you're somewhere working, normally are, work, not work, whatever. And someone who's a friend rocks up to you and says, so what did you do on the weekend? Right? So here's a question. Are you going to tell them you came to church? And if you do, how's that going to feel?
So I saw some friends last night and we were talking about, what they want to do tomorrow. I told them I was coming here, but I said to do something to help my dad out. So I don't necessarily feel like, it's not embarrassing to say I'm here, but I suppose I wouldn't say, oh, I've gone to church and sort of left it at that.
So there'd be no sense that you'd want to sort of create a sense that, hey, I'm aligned here. Yeah. How about you, Ash?
Yeah, similar in a sense, but I think I would say that I come to church to help, but then I'd probably go into the whole backstory of it, being like, oh, it's not really like a church situation, like, and I bring up something that happened when we were kids or something that aligned, and everyone's like, oh, so it's not like church. It's like, you're kind of just there, you have some fun, like there's a bit of this and that, but we're not at like a Catholic, more of like a Catholic vibe that most people think about when they think of church.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I definitely do a bit of explaining as well, and it's about community and those sort of things, and share the backstory of we've all grown up together and it's really about community and those sort of things, so definitely there's all the disclaimers that go with it as well.
Yeah, a little bit of what both of you have said, because I was here 3 weeks ago, so it's not a new concept for a lot of the people that I might have mentioned it to, but yeah, it's more of a, there to support, there to see what it's like again, I guess, but add all the caveats, not just leaving it at that.
Tom?
Yeah, similar. I think most of my close friends know about the Surrey community, so I wouldn't need to. I guess because it has been a big part of my life for so long that they know what I would be referring to and what I would sort of be up to. I think if it wasn't a close friend, then potentially there might be some qualifiers like you've said, and I guess it might be something that we end up talking about this morning is, I guess, maybe one of the barriers for some young people getting involved in church is assumptions that are made once you say you have an affiliation with the church, and if I didn't know someone particularly well, then I might feel inclined to add, some of those qualifiers around it's about community, it's, about my family, more so than it is about worship or about my faith. For my close friends, I would probably go to church with mum and dad or whatever it was. And I think as well, Grace, my wife, has had a very similar experience, I think, to Sari. She went to a church in Brighton, St Leonard's Uniting Church, and I think they have a pretty similar energy to what we have here. And she had a pretty similar experience with lots of very supportive family friends who came through that community and that network. So, with her group of friends, it's a similar kind of way of approaching that conversation.
Okay. So if I was to sort of draw that together, would I be accurate in saying, and I think this is probably fairly self-evident, but I'd be accurate in saying in terms of your age cohort, brand church, it's a bit smelly and uncomfortable at best, and perhaps even, you know, there would be people who'd have a more negative response to it. But it's a bit of an uncomfortable brand that you wouldn't necessarily see. It's a bit like Tesla's become, you know.
I would say probably, look, I mean, I would say there's plenty of people in our, I'm going to say we're all the same age here, because I'm a bit older, in our generation that church wouldn't have that. You know, there would be people out there that do attend church, you know, there would be churches that are, like I know some of our, if I think about like the Croxtons, you know, we've got family friends and their sort of kids are more aligned. I just don't think within my life, sort of the people that I'm friends with, necessarily, when you say church, there are a lot of assumptions and sort of considering more, like thinking more traditional church and what that means in terms of worship and all those things. But I'm sure there are also people out there our age that hold a really different approach. I don't know if you guys...
For those that don't know, I'm also a teacher. So I've worked in both the Catholic and independent system. So I think, when, you know, we speak about church, when I was at the Catholic system, a lot of the boys that were there, very much down the traditional lines. It was very black and white there, but now being in the independent, it's really interesting hearing some of the boys' opinion and how their, inverted commas, faith that we look at is growing the person, and we look at how they can be good people moving forward rather than tapping into like their faith. So from that instance, it's more open, I guess, at the new school with when we talk about church, we talk about faith, it comes across as a more chilled and like laid back version comparatively to when I was in the Catholic system.
Okay. So, changing tack a tad. So if I said to you, guys, you know, life's a roller coaster. There are good days, there are bad days, there are ups, there are downs. And my experience of life is it's always good to have somewhere where I draw inspiration from. If I said to you, and for me this community is part of that, if I said to you, you know, in the context of your normal life, where do you go for inspiration? Where would you tell me? And you're allowed to not answer a question if you don't.
I don't know if someone else wants to go first, because these questions came to us before today.
Except for Julia.
Oh my God. Well, I got these questions earlier. I sort of didn't have, I could answer all of them pretty well except for this one, because I'm not sure it's something I've never necessarily thought about in terms of, and I was kind of wondering, my question back was, like, inspiration for what? Like, what, you know, sort of...
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was in, like, the first thing that came to that was like, oh, I get everything from TikTok and Instagram. Like, that's my inspiration. Like, you know, every time, you know, I need something to do for Isaac, or whether it's at work, it's all like, oh, this is where I would go to try and find that inspiration, or typing it into the internet and going, oh, I need something, so this is what I'm going to try and do, figure out, okay, this is kind of what I want, but how do I alter it and change it to then fit what I need to do?
Yep.
So that's where I kind of took that inspiration from, rather than connecting it to the church.
Yep, I know. Fair.
Yeah, I think similar, like the internet. But I guess in terms of people and community, I think like I'm part of the scouting area, so I meet a lot of people through that, and that's another community that I have that I can get inspiration from, I guess. And also my parents, I get inspiration from. You're welcome.
I was wondering about that.
My mum is really inspiration. When I was thinking about this question, so I don't know if I've ever thought about I do think, and because I also thought about the internet, but I thought maybe mean the question in terms of like how do you like make time to make meaning in your life, or you know, consider where you're heading or what you're enjoying. And I think something I've learned more recently in the last couple of years, is, you know, exploring lots of different things, is nature is really important to me. And I often find, so I've just been to Tassie with a friend, and a lot of that was just being outside in really beautiful places, going on dog walks in really beautiful places. It doesn't have to be alone, but I think they're the moments that I sort of maybe reflect more on. So if the inspiration is more about like, what am I enjoying in life, what feels good, what thinking about what's going on, it's more those places that I maybe find, yeah, but it's not, but yes, if I'm sort of looking for inspiration to sort of in different areas, I will definitely go to Instagram.
So you don't get inspiration from your father?
I thought that was just a given, John.
Thomas, how about you and inspiration?
Yeah. Unlike others, I find it hard to draw inspiration from my parents. Changes aside, I think, I'm a people person. I derive most of my inspiration from other people in my life. Career-wise, it's senior colleagues at work. I think in terms of family life, it's other members of my family, and also probably plenty of people in the room today, part of the Surrey community, friends, and are probably the kinds of things that I find energising and motivating. I have a healthy dose of competitive nature, so if my friends decide to run a marathon, I feel obliged to beat them, which hasn't happened ever, but all that kind of stuff. But just different people, different aspects of my life, I think, is really where I get most of my inspiration from.
Okay. And sort of aligned to that, I mean, I think we're all aware that one of the constants, ironically, in life is change. So nothing stays the same, it all changes at all times. And probably one of the things that's happening in life today is the speed of change is increasing. So there's pressure for change on all of you, probably more than there is on our cohort. There's still pressure for change on us, but it's probably happening at a faster pace for you guys. So you're being called on to change and transform yourselves, and that's likely to increase. We're all talking about this AI, this transition to AI, which is likely to increase the speed of change and transformation. And how does the whole change and transformation thing work out for you in your lives? And how do you find a centre and a meaning in that space? And again, don't have to answer it, don't.
No, I was thinking about this as well. I do think what Tom said in terms of connection with family, friends, community, and the conversations you have within those spaces is sort of inspirational, but then leads to transformation as well. Like something that Dad and I sometimes do is go for a dog walk in the morning before school, and then Ollie gets to go home and spend time with his grandparents. And sometimes it's those conversations in the morning that are really great to unpack things and prompt and consider change. I find if you don't make time for it, the change just happens so rapidly. Definitely at work, the minute something has changed, you're looking for what the next change is, or you're sort of forced to just push on, and if you don't stop and celebrate and consider. And so I think space and time for it is really important, and I find that space too as a psychologist really important, because you can really sit in things and talk about it and understand rather than just sort of rush into the next thing. And I think you have to be really deliberate about, I don't know if I've answered your question yet, but I think you have to be deliberate in whatever sense works for you to stop and say what is the path I'm on, and is this going in the direction I want, or understanding how I've got here and those sort of things.
Yeah, I looked at this from a teacher hat to start with, with AI and everything, and seeing all the differences in our students over the last few years and how different it looks, them socialising, them playing, but like not really playing anymore. Like you look back, when I first started teaching, you know, they're all socialising, they're outside, they're all playing, and now our library is packed with kids on computers and on video games. And then I reflect, well, if this is what's happening and transforming all our students, like what's it going to be like in 15 years when Isaac's 15? Is it going to look the same? Is it going to look different? How can I help them in order to create those connections again? I think that's something that I've lost a little bit with like friends and whatnot, but also it's a way to help them try and reconnect and transform and like help themselves and have those deeper connections. So when we look back at like Surrey, I don't think our relationships would be the same if we came here as kids now compared to back when we were there, where like Surrey was literally like our little friendship group. So having that and seeing the difference, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the future with it all and whether we get back to that. Is that kind of
So actually you're saying that in lunchtime, kids are choosing to go to the library and be on technology rather than being outside with their friends?
Yeah.
Just remember, no one can hear you now.
So to answer that, for what that was, it was, Trina was just asking if kids now are spending more time at lunch in the library playing on technology rather than being outside. So the answer is yeah, to the point where every Tuesday and Thursday now in the library you can't play games online, it's homework or study only. So if you get caught playing games during those 2 lunch times, your laptop's taken off you and you're basically told, see you later. And then you're not allowed back. So that's one way that the school's trying to create that, but yeah, it's nuts at the moment, and I'm presuming school for you, Jess, would be the same?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm primary, so we have a lot more control over technology and when they're allowed to access it, but it's an addiction. And I don't know if any of you, there's a great text called The Anxious Generation and the impact that that's having on brains and how it's rewiring brains in a negative way. So it's, I don't know, yeah, it's a concern going forward what that's going to look like.
I don't know how much I have to add. I just think it's sort of interesting when we were talking about inspiration, we talked about how we use technology, and now when we're talking about sort of transformation and stuff, we're talking more about the social aspect and that technology is sort of ruining it for us. But yeah, I don't really have much to add on that.
Tom?
Yeah, interesting. When I saw this question, my mind didn't go down that route so much. I guess where my mind went was, having a fairly transformational for me in terms of my priorities lie in how I structure my life and how I want to spend my time and who I want to spend my time with was, I think, pretty substantially altered by that, as I think most people would say when they have a kid. It's really interesting hearing Ash and Jess talk about the technology side of things, because even our generation, I feel, Grace and I often talk to each other about how we feel we're addicted and we're probably only half as bad as the 14-year-olds running around on their phones, and we're very conscious of trying to monitor how much time we spend on that for the way that might affect Isla down the track, and it's going to be, Ash, I think one of the great challenges for parents of our generation is how do we care for children growing up in this world that's completely different to what it was when we were young. And Ash, like you said, I totally agree. I think the way we established our friendships and our relationships were in a completely different box to what our kids are going to grow up with. And that technology, just from a societal level, from a socialisation level, is probably the most transformational thing that's happened in a long time. And I don't yet know what that's going to look like for everyone, but it's a bit scary. think also probably just highlights the importance of opportunities and avenues to have communities and face-to-face interactions with people that allow you to separate yourself from being constantly attached to your phone. Even that's something that Grace and I try and deliberately seek out now, because we're all addicted in some different way. But yeah, so I want a bit of attention then.
So, if I said to you guys, because obviously our connection with you and your siblings and the broader cohort, our sense of connection with you guys is deep and strong and long term, where your parents, friends of your parents, if I said to you, is there something that this community could do to add value to your lives? And if the answer is yes, what do you reckon that might be? How would this community add value to your lives? And if you can't think of anything, take it up.
No, so when I thought about this question, I thought, and similar to what's been said previously, if I think back about Surrey, the parts I remember and still value are the connections we've made. So, and often those connections now happen with families outside of coming to church, so we might catch up for dinner or, see each other socially. And so if I said, well, going forward in my life, that's something I'd love to replicate in terms, if I had a family or, just to continue those connections. But I see that more now happening with my group of friends outside of, I don't know. I suppose what I'm trying to say, when I thought this, I said the things that I value are community, I like the values of a Christian approach, but there's then sort of beyond that, I don't feel super connected to religion. I'm more about the values that it shares. And I'm just wondering, this is not answering your question, but it's a question, what you're trying to build here, I don't know, how would that be different to what I get through my social connections outside of this community? I suppose is what I thought, I don't know if I've explained that very well, but community and values is what I'm seeking, and while it could be something I get here, it's also something I can access other ways as well that doesn't require me to come somewhere on a Sunday morning without Ollie.
Yeah, I kind of thought of it from that friendship and relationship where I would go out of my way to see people, and I think from that the connections that I've built within the church have gone beyond the church, and I don't feel that I need to come back all the time. If I have all these things, I see a lot of Tom and Roxy and the Adams and stuff through supporting Hawthorn, and sometimes heartbreak, sometimes really happy, but having that connection is something that I obviously go out of my way to continue to be part of, whereas I think catching up would more be as a friendship and a relationship, and seeing them outside and having a young kids catch up would be where I would find coming back to the church rather than coming back on a Sunday.
Yep.
It would be a once a term, twice a year thing rather than continually coming back.
Yeah, for me, I kind of mentioned previously, I do scouting. So in terms of a community where there's shared values, a mix of people, I think I have that through scouting, and I don't necessarily need it replicated in another way. In terms of the social aspect, so I don't know the answer to this question really, but I can find community in other ways.
Yeah, I think I share probably pretty similar view to everyone. in terms of what I got out of the community when I was a kid that I would love to have access to is similar. It's the community. It's the I guess the values. It's the access to mentors from different generations and things like that I think were really valuable to me and something that I would like Isla to have access to. I think, as people have alluded to, there are other ways to access those and beyond, a regular Sunday morning thing. And look, to be honest with you, one of the challenges I think in the modern world as well is everyone's so busy, and even the last 10 days I've been having a conversation with some of my best friends from school. We've got a group of 3 of us, and we've been lamenting the fact that we've caught up once in the last 6 months as a group of 3, and they're the most important friends in my life that I feel like I don't have any time for. And it's very difficult to carve out regular time in your week for something like a Surrey, even though it's something that I feel very positively about, reflect on very positively. I'm struggling to find time and energy for my best friends in the busy world. And I think in terms of what Surrey can offer, so I think I like Ash's suggestion of a 6-monthly group for the junior members of the community to catch up, something like that. But I think we are sort of finding different ways of getting similar things from our friends. Mother's group, or Grace has got her 4 closest friends all had babies within the same 12-month period, so we all are in a sort of very similar phase of life, facing similar challenges, and we sort of catch up regularly, and everyone in that group is, got different walks of life and different things to bring to the table in terms of that little community that we have, which we find special. So I think it is challenging. I don't have a clear answer as to what Hartwell or Surrey could bring to us, but I do at the same time feel a little bit of sadness about the fact that something that was a really important and really positive part of my childhood and upbringing, I'm not sure is something that I was necessarily going to have, but at the same time I'm not sure what the solution to that sort of necessarily is.
Okay, and last question before I throw it open to the broader group. Just 1 or 2 things, and again, no one has to answer if you don't want to. Do you reckon as you walk away from here today, is there going to be a thought in the back of your head that goes, and this is why I'm glad I don't go if what would that thought be about? Anyone?
Not necessarily in this format. I think I do really enjoy connecting with, I don't know everyone here, but it's always nice to meet new people, and then the people that have grown up or are friends with mum and dad, I do really enjoy connecting, and I feel like that's a nice part of the community. Things about church in general, just from my growing up, that I really struggle with are, and I think maybe it's changed here now, but the hymns and the concept of some of the, and I hope I don't offend saying this, but some of the things shared in some of those hymns, and that extreme view of God and good and evil and worship, and some of those concepts are what probably separated me from religion. But I get the feeling that Hartwell is more driven by community and values, which are the parts that I am drawn to. So I suppose there's some very obvious things about church that I could explain why I separated from them, but I'm not sure that's what this community is aligned to as much anymore.
Yeah, not really. Mine's just like, would be like the connection of like, obviously not having that time with Isaac at the moment. I'm like, oh, Nick's at home with Isaac and I'm not there. So that's where it's like, oh, well, probably like a big barrier of like not coming anymore. Is it now I'm missing out on, I guess, family time rather than being at church would be my big thing at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to this one.
Yep. Tom?
No, there's nothing about the Hartwell or Surrey fam that makes me glad that I don't go there anymore. hard pressed to find someone that doesn't feel safe in this community. I think it's a very loving and welcoming community. For me, it's really just about how I spend my time, and I have a lot of time for a lot of you in the room and in the broader community, but I think we find ways to spend time together in other ways that I personally find a bit more rewarding, and also a bit easier to fit into my life. So but nothing negative to say.
Thank you. Now, before I let them off the hook completely, does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask? Now, unfortunately, we've got one microphone, so I'm going to have to walk around a bit.
Yeah, I know.
Surprise away.
We'll see if it's better or worse.
I'm just wondering, if you take the word church out, insert the word spirituality, do you have conversations with your friends about spirituality? Yeah, I'm just wondering where that sort of sits with you guys.
Probably still no. There's definitely deep discussion about life and all those things. The language of spirituality isn't one that comes into it though. I'm trying to think if there's words that we would use to represent the same thing, which aren't necessarily coming to mind, but and I know I've said this word 1,000 times this morning, but it's probably more value-based, like driven conversation, and that is not language, or like spirituality isn't language we use, but it may be similar conversations, just using different language.
Yeah, also not something that really comes up both in my friends outside of school and like my colleagues. I guess we replace the word spirituality with being a good person. So when we talk about it through like a school lens, it's all about being a good person rather than spirituality. I guess it all, like, if you delve into it, would all connect together, but I think it's, yeah, quite deters, like people are unsure, and like most people, if you're unsure, you don't really engage or delve deep compared to when you are sure and you know exactly what that means, you're more likely to engage in the topic.
I've kind of forgotten what the question was, but in terms of discussing religion and spirituality with my friends, I have a few friends who go to church regularly. I have a friend that went to Rome for a Catholic youth thing a few months ago, and it was a massive, like, millions of people all went to this event. And I think I have a lot of very respectful conversations with a lot of different people about spirituality, and people feel things in different ways, but what it comes down to, I think, is values and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you.
Thomas?
I don't think I have very much to add either. I think very similar. I've got one close friend who is very religious and goes to church every Sunday, and we do have conversations about religion and spirituality, but the rest of my friends, I think, like what Jess said, spirituality, I don't think is the right way to describe the conversations that we have. We think about the world, and we have lots of in-depth conversations about current events and politics, and what we think is right and wrong, and all of that, but it doesn't really come through the lens of spirituality. Maybe that's just a part of the phase of life that we're in our sort of early 30s, and life going at a million miles an hour. We don't really, I don't think, probably spend enough time stopping and thinking about, meaning of life, or whatever, however you want to say it, but yeah, we don't really have those conversations at the moment.
Mark?
All right, cool. Sorry, yes, look, I have a question, which is, every now and then when it comes up to the topic of how do we get all the youth in the church, I say, as possibly a person in the room closest to your age as well. And I think one of the things that always comes up is that we should stop calling it church, which is, I personally feel kind of conflicted about, because that kind of feels like it's feeding into that sort of cynical or maybe like deceptive, it's not church, it's the Fellowship Academy. I don't know. if we stop calling ourselves a church, this is good. If we stop calling ourselves a church, and we just call ourselves Harlow Community, how do you think it would go down if you weren't saying I'm going to church, I'm going to the Harlow Community? Would that even change it at all? That's my question about that.
I don't know, I think it would be more confusing. I think people would then be like, church is church, and like people kind of understand like the gist of it. But then if you say Hartwell Community, I think from aspect, well then, are we unsure? Like, what is it? Like, are we here to do X, Y, and Z? So I think it would be quite a broad spectrum. I think people may come for different reasons, but whether they find the connections because they're here for something completely different is the $1 million question. Like, people may come thinking that it's something that it's not.
Yeah, definitely from my perspective, the name is not the barrier. And I know everyone might have a different perspective here, but it's and Tom mentioned it before, it's how I would be spending this time. My priority for this time on a Sunday morning is probably the barrier in terms of my attendance. So, look, I mean, the name may have an impact on other people's attendance, but for me, if this is sort of what I found the most meaning in on a Sunday morning, and it's something I really love doing, I wouldn't mind if it was called church or community or, whatever. I think it's more just in the craziness of life and the limited time, especially time to just be a bit more slow in the week. I think that's more the barrier for me than the name. Tom, did you have anything?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's possible that the people, the four of us here are not the right audience to ask that question, because I think most of us have broadly positive connotations with our church community, and so that's not what's stopping us from coming. I can't speak for other people, but I would, if I was just hazarding a guess around, my 50 closest friends, I don't think that would be what's stopping them. I think it's just how people want to spend their time, and I understand that there are some in our society, some negative connotations with church and religion that may be barriers to some people, but I'm not sure that the name change alone is going to be enough to break down that barrier.
Guys, thank you very much. Now I'm going to actually draw a line. I'm sorry, guys, we're going to run out of time, and I'm just aware it's 5 to 11. On the basis of the name thing, one thing I will say to wrap it up is a little while ago we started doing the Sunday night thing.
Stop it. No.
Where we would all go and have tea together and just grab that wanky church. So thank you very much, and for giving us your time. We really, really appreciate it, and it's great to not only see you here this morning, but to actually hear some of your thoughts. And your thoughts have been really well formed, and you're all very articulate people, and thank you so much for spending some time. What we're going to do now is we're going to sing a song.
Christian song.
And then we will have communion just quickly. Tom, please feel free to stay on if you would like to, but equally, I know you're driving to Adelaide today. If you'd like to log off and head off, please feel free to do that. Thank you for making the time today. So, over to Meryl to play. Now, normally speaking, actually, Tom, you want to lead the singing? Normally you can. So, Rosemary, you're going to lead some singing for us this morning?
What? Oh.
Someone, I'll tell you what, don't let me have one. we spend this time each week and we have this little ritual which we call communion. You will have all celebrated this time many, many times before. And as you've been on a journey in your life, I guess so are we on journeys in our life, including personally and community together. For me, if I speak about myself at this moment, to a certain extent, words like spirituality sometimes have a connotation that I find unhelpful, both even personally, but certainly if I'm engaging with the broader community. They're words that have a cachet of meaning that's caught behind them that actually doesn't help the conversation. And for me, words that are more helpful are words like connection and words like exploration, curiousness, encouragement. They're words that I find to be much more akin to the heart of what I sense spirituality is these days. And connection in particular, connection to myself, an ability to have self-knowledge, connection to the other, whether the other be another human or another sentient being, a dog, for instance. As I'm getting older, getting a bit softer in this regard, but also connection to spaces like nature, connection to a broader environment. And connection, of course, not only helps us honour existing spaces and sources of engagement, but it invites us into new spaces and sources of engagement and even inspiration. And I think one of the things that's happening in our community is that we're starting to find more and more spaces of engagement, perhaps outside the traditional Christian tradition. I'm going to ask Trina to come and read a reading to us now. That she's obviously, I think it'll be up on the screen there, Trina, if you want to read it. Yeah. And so this is a reading by a person called Rumi, and Rumi was a 12th century Sufi, and he's a wonderful poet. So this is a Rumi reading called One Song.
Every war and every conflict between human beings has happened because of some disagreement about names. It is such an unnecessary foolishness, because just beyond the arguing, there is a long table of companionship set and waiting down for us to sit down. What is praised is one, so the praise is one too. Many jugs being poured into a huge basin. All religions, all this singing, one song. The differences are just illusion and vanity. Sunlight looks a little different on this wall than it does on that wall, and a lot different on the other one, but it is still the same light. We have borrowed these clothes, these time and space personalities from a light, and when we praise, we're pouring them back in.
Thanks, Trina. When you were in this space, perhaps on a former occasion, and we came to this time, you may have heard the context that was put around this little meal to be a context about how sacrifice has enabled relationship to be reconnected. The sacrifice of Jesus was what enabled us to reconnect with the divine. Right? That's sort of a traditional framework that's been put around this time. But I have to say today that feels unbelievably wrong to me. The idea that violence and suffering is a necessary precursor to connection feels a really bad idea to me. Any sort of worldview where violence, suffering and domination become a necessary precursor to connection just feels like it's sort of walking us down a pathway where these things become necessary acts and even holy acts. Violence becomes a holy act. And I don't think violence is a holy act. And I think that, we all are living in a world now where we can look around us very, very quickly and easily, and we can see worldviews where violence and suffering and domination are justified as holy acts, and we know the sort of world that ends up playing out when that happens. And we can all talk about that more later if we want to. So today when I, invite you to share this meal together, because I don't want to have that framework really. I want to think about it as a space of connection. Because in many senses, sharing food is one of the most fundamental ways human beings connect, isn't it? When we're with our friends, or last night, we've got friends and we want to do something that's special. What do? We go to dinner together. This is a fundamental and sort of natural way for human beings to connect. And so there's a sense in which this is a symbolic little moment of connection between us. And why do we connect? Well, we connect to hear each other and understand each other, to encourage each other and inspire each other, to care for each other and be gracious towards each other, and to believe the best in each other. And sometimes when I'm not necessarily showing the best of who I can be, it's those people who are genuinely connected with me who may come looking for that and just encourage it back out. What we're going to do this morning, so the way we have committed these days is in a minute, we'll just, if you can make, Trent's turned a little bit joking up the right way because it's a bit tricky. So we just pour the carbs, and you can have some grape juice or the wafer when you want it. So it's quite informal. Again, if it's not something you want to do, you don't feel the need to participate, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm now going to read you one last poem. And this is also from another voice who's become more regular in our midst. It's the voice of a man called John O'Donoghue. And he was an Irish poet. At one stage, he had a formal association with the church, but towards the end of his life, he also changed that. This is one of what I think is his most wonderful poems. And this is a poem that I often find inspiration from. So this is a place I go to for inspiration. So I'm just going to read it out for everyone. Pour the bread, the cup, and let John O'Donoghue's words just wash over us. And think about the week that is ahead. And Jess, you might need to leave and actually work to start the report, because I can't decide. So here's O'Donoghue's words. I bless the night that nourished my heart, to set the ghosts of longing free, into the flow and figure of dream that went to harvest from the dark, bread for the hunger that no one sees. All that is eternal in me welcomes the wonder of this day, the field of brightness it creates, offering time for each thing to arise and illuminate. I place on the altar of the dawn the quiet loyalty of breath, the tent of thought where I shelter, waves of desire I am sure to, and all beauty drawn to the eye. May my mind come alive today to the invisible geography that invites me to new frontiers, to break the dead shell of yesterdays, to risk being disturbed and changed. And here's the thought to take with you in the week. May I have the courage today to live the life that I would love, to postpone my dream no longer, but do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more. Amen. So guys, thanks again for coming. Feel free to start. There's going to be lots of people who want to chat to you. We'll just stay, don't go out there and have coffee anymore, we stay here. So thanks again for coming so much today. Just before we bring the service to a close, I think we've got some announcements. I think John and Katrina have got something to say. Do you guys want to just Katrina first?
Thank you. Just as an aside, I said to Janine, you know, one of the things that I love coming here is it makes me stop. And with Brian and Janine and Meryl and Julie, you sit here and you go home and you think, yeah, I just wouldn't have thought about that if I hadn't been sitting here. And I said, where do the kids ever sit and hear stuff that they think, wow, I'm glad I heard that? She said, podcasts. Yeah. And I thought, yep, okay, that's really good. If they're listening to podcasts and they're thinking and they're getting what I'm getting today, I don't listen to podcasts, so I need it. But it's good that, you know, podcasts are around. So that was just a little aside. But look, we got tasked with cleaning up the mess in the middle foyer from the board. Those beautiful blue chairs and those low tables that these girls would have played on playgroup with. One of them has been tasked that it's now Isaac's Lego table. But I have reached...
Not at my place.
Yeah, but it needs to go, okay? So, but I have put it out on the World Wide Web that we're giving them away for free, and I've got rid of all but 2 tables. So that means that we are looking at redeveloping that middle area. Cole, who's the facilitator of the placemaking committee, we're getting the band back together, and we now, because we're a little bit closer to working out what we're going to do, we're going to look at how, without a lot of money, we're going to sort of do some work without the bigger picture behind us of how we're going to make that look a little bit more exciting when we have the large number of people that come through here, so it makes it look a bit better for them. So they're all going. We are looking at, look, if any of you really want a president's chair, talk to me, we can give it to you. We're looking at selling the pew, so watch the space. But if you come in and go, has someone stolen those beautiful blue chairs? Don't worry, I've given them away, okay?
2 things. October the 25th is a quiet day. It's been run by Andy Deakins and myself. It'll be at Hartwood. So whack that in your diary. And on a sad note, Barbara Lord passed away early this morning. So Barb's a member of this church for some time. Barb was the president of my cricket club when I played cricket. And of course she was the partner of Graham Lloyd, who came here as well, and of course the mother-in-law of Janine, who we think of this morning, along with her husband Mark, whose mother was Barbara. So there you go.
So the one thing that we do that you probably also remember is we still finish each week. I think we used to do this with you guys, but yeah, by singing together the Irish blessing. Now, I never led the singing. That's also another thing that's agreed. So, Michael, would you like to come up and a cappella us the Irish blessing?
Oh, do I need it?
You don't need it.
But people like
I was walking over here, you know. May the road rise to meet you, may the wind
eating well, and I'm eating good food, but not necessarily chewing on.